Hello and welcome back to the Outside and Active podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Hannah Beecham from Red January. Hannah, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Very well. Thank you for having me back.
Absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. We've spoken to you in the context of the National Running Show before, and you're very close to that. But I wanted to grab you and get you onto the Outside and Active podcast. We're actually recording this in November, but this will be going out just before January, which is an incredibly busy month for you. And we're going to chat all about that and how Red January came about, what actually Red January is, and also dive into your background of being physically active. But to start with, I wanted to give you a piece of advice from a previous podcast guest. It was actually the person who was on the podcast last, and it's from Edwina Brocklesby, who is otherwise known as Iron Gran, which I think is an incredible nickname. And she's called Iron Gran because she started running at the age of 52, and she has taken on and completed a load of Ironmans. She has taken on and completed the Race Across America, which is a 3,000 mile cycle across America in a team of 4. And she's also doing that next year when she will be 80 years old. Unbelievable woman, very funny woman. And her piece of advice for you was actually different to the advice that we often get on the podcast, because hers was actually quite a practical piece of advice for someone who will be coming onto a podcast, which was to make sure you know the questions that you're going to be asked, which I think is very practical. You know, sometimes we have spend 5 minutes of every day doing something for you, or make sure you plan ahead, or whatever it might be. But this advice is very practical, and I've taken that myself, and I've told you some of the questions. But I think what we're going to be talking about, you will know like the back of your hand, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. But the first question I have for you is, Hannah, what do you love about being outside and active?
Fingers crossed, by the way. I knew you said the questions before, and I'm like, I really hope I know these at the back of my hand. It'll be a real test. So what do I love about being outdoors and being active?
Yeah.
So especially at this time of year, actually, I love being outdoors. And I guess as part of my journey through Red January, I've started to really enjoy getting outdoors when it's raining and windy and cold. There's just something about really embracing those elements that it might sound really cheesy, but it really makes you feel alive. Like when you're going against the elements, even if you're just walking down the road, there's just something about having that rain, having the wind that just makes you feel more alert, makes you feel more energized. I really love being outside at this time of year. I must admit, autumn, winter time is genuinely my preferred seasons to be outdoors in nature. I just think, as I said, you just start to really embrace the elements. There's just something so special about it. And maybe I'm biased because of our work on Red, and we're always trying to almost kind of reframe what it means to move in the winter. And I think as long as you've got a good, decent-ish kit, like you've got a good waterproof jacket, all of that good stuff, then yeah, it's there for us to enjoy and embrace.
It's interesting. I'm kind of split on this because I look outside now and I see it being dark, windy and rainy, and I did walk into work, but I would be lying if I said that I completely enjoyed it. However, I absolutely love playing sport and running in the rain. I find it really almost cathartic. When you stop and you realise that you're really wet and cold, it's a bit different. But I can completely appreciate what you say about trying to embrace the winter and the cold months more. But most people usually say, oh, the summer, the heat, I love being outside, or even just if it's sort of mild, that 14, 15 degrees. But how do you find getting outdoors in the winter and when it's raining? Do you have pretty good motivation?
Again, I guess through the experience of Red January, and we've worked with some incredible people throughout the years, both in the community and outside of the community, that have provided some advice and tips on how to embrace all those different weathers as well. And actually, when you're out there, I don't know if you find this as well, but you know, when you're out, it's chucking it down, maybe you're running or you're walking, it just feels like your connection with other people around you is like they're kindred spirits. You just give each other a nod of, yeah, we're hardcore, we're out in the rain and we're out in the wind, and I don't know what it is. There's just something. How would you describe it? It feels quite raw. It
Yeah.
feels quite raw.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, there's just something about it where you get this feeling that I personally don't experience as much in the summer. And actually, when we hear from Redders, when they talk, especially when they send us videos of them, like their kids jumping in the puddles and them out climbing a mountain, you can barely hear them on the audio just because the wind is like batting against them. It's just, you can just see them just like their eyes are wide open. It just seems really joyous. There's just something about it. As I said, I'm sure before Red January, if you'd interviewed me then, I might have felt differently. But yeah, there's just something about it. It feels quite special.
My favorite thing is seeing, if I'm running next to a road and then I see people that are in traffic or in cars or whatever, and they look at you like, what are you doing? It's cold and it's wet and it's windy. Why are you? They just look bemused. And I used to be like that before I started running, but yeah, they're okay. Interesting, the rain. And but before we talk about Red January, and I know you've spoken about, teased a little bit of the impacts it can have on people, but interested to know about you and your background and being active specifically. What's your first memory of either playing sport or being outdoors or being active?
It's so funny, and genuinely, this hasn't just been informed by what we've just talked about, but I vividly remember cross-country running at school, which I'm sure even saying those words to a lot of listeners might bring back really bad memories as well. But for me, it just, again, just that experience of, it felt quite raw. And as a kid, it felt like you were just in those puddles, embracing the mud. There was no barriers. You were just out there, just, embracing all of it. I absolutely loved it. And it was just great just to get out there again and just represent my school as well at the time and build bonds. But it felt like the bonds again when you're out there and it's chucking it down and you're covered in mud and your hands are freezing. I know I'm not selling this very well, but when you're out there, those connections that you build with people around you just feel so much stronger. It feels like you're really in it together. And I experienced that as a 13-year-old. And maybe that has informed some of Red January. I don't know, those prior experiences. But yeah, that really stands out to me. I vividly remember being covered in mud a lot as a teenager. Nice. And really enjoying cross-country running. Like, it just, when you find that thing that you're just like, oh, and that was that thing. Yeah, that's one of the memories that stands out the most.
That's one of the earliest ones. I think cross-country at school was probably an activity that a lot of people can understand, and I think whether they wanted to or they were forced to by teachers and parents, I think a lot of people have that common ground. Were you the type of child, or are you the type of person now that goes to jump in a puddle if it's raining? 'Cause it's how it's coming across.
Yeah, I probably am. I think, there's just it does that thing to you where it feels quite playful, doesn't it? I just feel like I don't get it as much in the summer. I just don't know what it is. And even, when you see like a pile of leaves in autumn, don't you just have the urge just to like jump in them or do it? Just has that feeling about it. Yeah.
And no matter what age,
about it.
And no matter what age, we actually had someone on the podcast called Jay Worthy who said he's got 5 children. He's in his 40s, but he said, why don't we climb trees? Like, where was that time at that age where you become a certain age and we don't climb trees anymore? He said, it's fun, it's cool, go and jump in a puddle, go and climb a tree. And that reminded me of that. Is there a sport that you've never tried or an activity that you would love to try?
Oh, that's such a good question. And actually, I'm inspired year on year by seeing the different activities that Redders enjoy as well. Cold water swimming, which I'm sure you're really familiar with as well, is really taken off for lots of different reasons. Obviously, one of them being the benefits on people's mental well-being. And that's something I have started to dip my toe into a little bit. But yeah, anything that I haven't tried yet. Actually, I had a really good chat with someone yesterday who started climbing. But one of those indoor walls without like the straps or anything like that. And when she was talking about the experience, it's the first time that she's tried it, complete kind of novice to the sport. But you could see she was just really had so much energy talking about it. It was like a 2-hour thing, and now she feels like she's part of that community. And yeah, I'd love to. I've never tried anything like that. I tend to do a lot of things with my legs, like walking, running, those kind of things. So it'd be quite nice to try something completely different like that.
It's a lot of grip strength, upper body strength, but it also it's quite fun. We have someone that works with us that does that as well, and he really enjoys it. So I like that answer. My one's always been ultimate frisbee. I remember seeing people play it at university and going, if you put ultimate in front of a name of a sport, it has to be amazing. And so that's always been my one for some reason. That's what inspired the question. But
I don't even know what ultimate frisbee. What is ultimate frisbee? Just very quick.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to throw it into end zones, and it's amazing. I mean, it's ultimate. That's the only way I can define it.
So you need to know.
Exactly. So let's go into Red January.
Yeah.
First of all, explain what it is in its current form now.
Yes, so Red January is an annual public health campaign that's motivating people to move every single day in January to beat the winter blues away, so to support your mental health. There's also the option to fundraise as well, so you can support other people's mental health along the way. But it can be any form of movement. And I know I touched upon it earlier in terms of the different types of activities, but we see people up and down the country embracing things like walking, running, cycling, also using it as an opportunity to try a completely different activity as well. So it's interesting that you asked that question, because we do find that just over a third of participants enjoy embracing something completely different. It could be like a team sport that they've been thinking about for years. So actually we do find that I know we've talked a lot about play and like childlike activities, but we do find that a lot of adults that join Red actually want to re-embrace sports that they enjoyed as a kid as well. So people go back and do netball and hockey and football, all the things that as you get older, as you become further and further away from it, you're like, oh no, I can't do that anymore. So it's brilliant to see people think, actually, you know what, I can do this as part of Red January and feel a part of something special.
Yeah, that's so true, because people play sports at school, university, and then they might, a small percentage carry on playing as they start careers, but then it really, really does drop off. And like you said there, you're encouraging people to get back into something that they either have never done before or something that they used to do when they were younger and are finding a passion and a love for again. How did Red January come about then? Where was the inception of the idea?
Yeah, so my mum experiences depression, and she tended to, in the winter, experience lower mood and lower energy just generally, and increased depressive symptoms as well. And it just got me thinking about what was out there to support people like, my mum predominantly, and people like my mum at this time of year. And actually 8 years ago, there wasn't really anything out there like a Red that was giving people a positive goal and a focus to move at that time of year. I know we talked about it earlier, but most things like Red tended to be weighted towards the summer, which I understood logistically. But actually, when I was chatting to friends and family, we all experience lower mood, lower energy at this time of year. Obviously, to greater degrees than some, but it is typically experienced because it is dark, it is cold, and there's so much evidence to show that we're less active as a nation at this time of year. Reports of all of what I've just shared there in terms of lower mood and energy. So I wanted to put something out there that would hopefully encourage people to move at a time of year where they perhaps would have been less active. So the original idea for Red January was more rooted around running. So it originally stood for Run Every Day. And then we evolved it, I think it was about 3 years in, to move every day to beat the winter blues away. So it's very much rooted in choosing an activity that works for you and your lifestyle. Ideally with the ambition that you'll form a healthy habit, and then it will support you well into the year as well. So it's been amazing to see my mum still a part of the Red community and really be a part of sharing those experiences that we all experience to some extent, and really start to understand what the barriers are to people moving at this time of year. But to see my mum still a part of it yeah, incredibly heartwarming.
Yeah,
It really
it
is.
must be, because she was the inspiration to why the idea came about, and she's still part of that community. And you've welcomed in people into that community that probably were going through something similar, but also, are there people that just want to get involved to try and generally be more active? Obviously, and you said it there, we know now that being active in whatever form is going to have a positive effect on your mental well-being. But do you find that some people just join because they want to experience that something new, or go back to experiencing something they did when they were younger, like we spoke about?
It's so true. Yeah, people's motivations to join, we've spent years actually really listening to that red community and understanding what moves and motivates you. What are those things? And it's what you touch upon there, really. People have different motivations to join. For some, as you've described, it's probably to have a bit of fun at this time of year, and also do it with their buddies as well, do it with their family and friends. And yeah, just bring a bit of joy into what could typically be a pretty tough month. Also, for some people, they want to set some personal goals. Actually, they've been building up to something. I know it's kind of marathon season as well early next year. So people do use it as a good training opportunity as well. And then other people really want to raise money to support others, and to support their own mental well-being as well. So it's such a variety of reasons. It really is. But it's just amazing to see that people are pretty much taking from Red January what they want from the experience. That's always been at the very heart of why we exist, really. It's there for people to take from it what they want to. It's very flexible and inclusive in that way.
And I'm asking these questions pretty much knowing the answer, but is there an age limit that people can get involved, minimum, maximum? Is there a certain amount of activity that someone has to do? Do they have to go for a 2-hour run every day when they're doing it?
No, and no. So we've got a 4-year-old. There's a 4-year-old in the community, Jack. He takes part with his school. And then last year we had our oldest redder. She won't mind me saying that as well, but she's 98, incredible lady called Brenda from Wales. He gets out walking with her dog. She joined with her family. They set up a WhatsApp group, and they were all sharing motivational advice in the morning and photos and things like that. So I hope that gives you a sense of the real spectrum of, it's for everyone. It's for everyone, and people can enjoy it in a way that works for them. And in terms of the activity, the focus is very much on setting a personal goal. What works for you and your lifestyle? We're all unique. We all have different things going on in our life. We know we have a lot of families getting involved. And actually, they try and embrace Red January on their school run. So even things like leaving the car at home and walking their kids to school, those things, practical things that you'll continue after January, are very much kind of rooted in why Red January is here and in getting people moving.
I love that, because I think, and people that have listened to this podcast for a while will have heard this before, is that people sometimes think, and I've spoken to people that want to start getting active and think, oh, I need to go to the gym 5 times a week, or I need to be building up and running loads, or just kind of go from 0 to 100. Whereas actually, like you said there, and this is especially true for Red January, trying to find ways to build it into your everyday life, whether it be deciding to take that walk to drop the kids off at school or to work, or even just taking a lunch break and going for a 20-minute walk, whatever it may be, has such a benefit. And it doesn't have to be to the extreme. If it is to the extreme and you want to build up to that, or people want to do it, then fair enough. But I think the key thing that you pretty much said there was, it's whatever works for the individual and setting your own goals. And you must see such a transformation with people that are embarking on Red January for the first time. Well, I suppose every year, but especially for the first time.
Yeah, we really do. And actually, when we meet up with Redders after January and hear about their experience, there's common themes in what people are sharing, but the overarching thing is very much around people's confidence levels, their improved self-esteem, just feeling more like they can actually, if they can take this on, if they can start to do this for themselves, just think about what else they could do for themselves all year round, especially when you're doing it in January. I know we talked earlier about the fact that it's great, you get out there and you feel alive in the rain and the cold, and I don't mean that to be flippant, because it is it can be really, like you said, looking out the window and seeing it raining doesn't necessarily make you want to lace up your trainers. So actually, to know that you've got out there and enjoyed moving and embracing movement at that time of year, if you can do it then, just think about what you can do throughout the rest of the year as well. So to know that they've got through a winter, which the past few winters of, I think we've had snow, ice, rain, it's been everything in one. So yeah, I think they really feel so proud of everything that they've achieved in that month, and they don't want it to stop there. They're like, okay, this is the start of something, which is so heartwarming to hear.
Yeah, I imagine it's taking that first step out the door is a theme and a phrase that you hear all the time. But I imagine, and you will know this better, that doing it with a friend, a family member, a colleague, a partner, whatever, do you find that people do that a lot? And does that make it easier to just break the barrier?
Massively. Yeah, buddying up is a huge part of the Red January experience. And actually, this year especially, we've seen a huge increase in people signing up as a team. And team meaning family, workplace, buddies as well, like sports clubs, those things. So it's been amazing to see people really using it as an opportunity to come together, either with people that they see on a regular basis or to build connections with people that they're not in contact that often. When we chat to workplaces, we always find it is brilliant that people are like, oh, I didn't actually know the guy's name in the other department, and now I know him, and I've got to know him really well, and now we're meeting up more regularly. And again, it's those things, as you've described there, that not only throughout January, but then all year round, you've got that support network of people that you can plan some activities with. And then there's some level of accountability, isn't there, around that, when you say, let's meet at this time and do this. It's not just on you. You feel almost like a shared responsibility to the other individual. And 9 times out of 10, we hear that people attend that class because they know that they've got the support of a loved one there with them as well. And you can have a lot of fun with it. So again, when people share their videos and stories and things like that, when they're doing it together with other people, the joy that comes across and just having that shared experience with people is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're promoting physical activity and being healthy and that improving a person's mental well-being, but you're also, as part of that, it's promoting social networking and community and bonding as something which, especially over the context of the last couple of years, but as society progressed, that, working from home, other different elements of society that we don't necessarily get that social interaction as often. So by doing Red January, you're also being part of a community. And I'd be interested to know what the biggest thing you've noticed. I think that the first Red January was 2016 and going again in 2023 and so forward. What's the biggest thing that you've noticed and learned about people and community in that time frame?
Really good question. What we found is the simplest things are the way that community come together. So just putting out an idea of simply going for a walk and a talk together. It's what you talked about earlier when people think of movement. It sometimes can get quite complicated because there's so many options out there. But actually we find that coming back to basics with movement has been the thing that's really motivated people to move and has been the consistent thing year on year. So, for example, walking is still the preferred activity as part of Red January. So it's amazing to see people come back to the activities that don't cost any money unless you wanted to buy some fancy kit, but they don't cost any money. We can all get outside. If you're feeling capable enough to, you can all get outside and enjoy the benefits that can bring. Equally, for those people that aren't ready to take a step at their front door, they can walk around their home or walk up and down their stairs. It feels very accessible and very inclusive. So for 8 years, the consistent things have been very much rooted in the most simplest forms of activity. So things like walking and things like that. And actually, again, the simplest form of communication as well. So people planning to meet up and enjoying a coffee together after a walk. Again, it's just keeping it very practical. and very inclusive. It doesn't need to cost any money. Those have been the consistent things, and people sharing their experiences through conversations as well. That's been the constant throughout all of this.
And a similar question, but flipping it around, what's the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself in that time period?
Wow. Actually, the biggest thing has been 8 years ago. So I wouldn't say I'm a keen runner. I wouldn't describe myself now as a keen runner. But when we started Red January, I was running a lot of races like half marathons, all those kind of things. And actually, I've been so inspired by the Red community throughout the years that the way I think about movement has completely changed. So I tended to put probably quite a bit of pressure on myself around times and getting out and having a training schedule, having a watch on, all of those things. And when I look back to that, I'm a very different person now in terms of the way that I approach activity. I love mixing activity in a way where 8 years ago I was just running or I was just walking. Like I was very focused on one thing, whereas now I love mixing it up. I love running if I do run without my watch and just trusting my instinct and my feeling with it and not setting a distance, not setting a time. Movement means very different things to me now. And it feels much more flexible. When I think of movement, I don't think picture the gym. I don't picture running in a race. I picture going for a walk on my lunch break, enjoying a walk and a talk with a buddy and those kind of things. It has completely changed the way I think about physical activity.
That's really interesting and nice to hear. And I know that a lot of people, I've heard that before, go through that change. And I had that with running as well, where it starts off as being, you're so focused on numbers, whether it be time or distance, that it almost becomes not enjoyable. And as soon as something becomes a chore and not being enjoyable, it's I wouldn't say it's not worth it, but it becomes not what it's about. Whereas now, like you spoke about, that transition to it becoming a feeling rather than a chore is almost quite relaxing. It's nice. It's good to hear. So it's a good answer. I like that. I thought that might be a difficult one that I'd spring on you, but actually you've answered that very nicely. Very nice.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. January matches up quite nicely with New Year's resolutions. So do you see that being part of the motivation for people, taking part in Red January as well?
You know what? And this is an honest response, because I think a lot of people would think New Year, New Me, Red January is part of that. If anything, we try and completely separate ourselves from that. And genuinely, we've never had any feedback where people have said, we're joining Red January as part of a New Year's resolution. I'm hoping that's because our messaging is very clear in terms of join in a way that works for you, and it's all about forming habits that will support you all year round, those kind of things. But no, we've never seen people join. I'm sure there's people out there that do to some extent, but yeah, we've never heard that. Which is brilliant, because as I said, we're very keen that it doesn't fold into that space.
Yeah.
It's more around consistency, more around supporting yourself, more around fitting it into your lifestyle, setting realistic goals, taking small steps, all of those things. So yeah, we've never heard that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that you to hear that you said that you're happy that people aren't joining because of that, because there is some statistic that if I said I'd be lying that I know what it is, but it's about how many people fail their New Year's resolutions 7 days into it. And like you said, this is not what Red January is about. It's about forming habits. And I was going to ask you about that, because you kind of touched on it earlier with how you want to support people to be active after January. But obviously, naturally, the way that it's formed, people could fall into a trap where they take part in it for 30 days and then they're left to their own devices and they're dropped, and then they fall out of it, and it doesn't become that change of habit. How do you support people or encourage people? How can people get involved in continuing on in a more sustainable way? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be every day, but in a more sustainable way to change those habits after January.
So the biggest thing, we encourage people to remain a part of the Red community. So having those connections, keeping each other, sharing what they're going to be doing. And actually what we tend to see is that people experience such great benefits from setting personal goals that they'll then look to set personal goals throughout the year as well. So we encourage people to share what their goals are if they feel comfortable. And then it inspires other people to think about, actually, oh, maybe I could be doing this, or maybe I could sign up to this because I've started to build up the confidence to get to that stage. We also collaborate with some incredible supporters and partners as well, who share fitness advice and tips throughout the year to give people, again, really just some food for thought of things that they could be doing as well. One big thing for us, increasingly so actually, is working with communities on the ground to understand what opportunities are there for Redders. So things like local activity providers, a lot of the time they tend to be either free or low cost. So we want to make sure that Redders are aware of opportunities that might be right on their doorstep as well. And we also partner with local groups, so then people can buddy up and make friends locally. The biggest thing for us, we recognise that it's predominantly an online community. People all come together and share their experiences at a key time in the year. But the biggest thing for us is that people really join up on the ground as well. And that's the way that people naturally will hopefully be able to support themselves all year round as well. So that's the ambition, is that we can bring people together more on the ground in a local way.
Did you have a walk or a hike recently that was it something that was the first one that you'd had like that?
Thanks for the reminder. I should have really mentioned that. Yeah, we did. We teamed up with an incredible organisation called Mind Over Mountains, who you're probably very familiar with by the way that you're shaking your head, who are just incredible and basically lead a group out in nature. They have incredible coaches as well there with you, who just provide an amazing environment for you to, again, just take from the experience what you want to take from the experience. But the essence of it is you're out in nature walking and talking, if you want to, with other people. So yeah, it was the first time we invited the Red community to come together in person. They did, if I'm honest, Redders tend to just plan to meet up in person all year round anyway. So it was really nice that we could facilitate that and invite people to be a part of it. And the plan originally was that we're out there and having lots of different conversations and hopefully kind of capturing the essence of the day as well. But what we found is that we enjoyed it so much that we kind of just forgot all of that. And we were there enjoying a walk alongside other people. I don't know if you find that in your work, but even when you're kind of coming to these things, I was like, actually, this feels too lovely and too special. And we should be embracing it as well. So, it's a start of many ways that we'll be bringing people together all year round.
Exciting. I like that. And one of the things that keeps coming back to me whenever you're talking about it throughout this conversation is removing barriers and making it as accessible and easy as possible to become a part of, because as we know, for people that are struggling with their mental well-being, it's almost like an additional barrier, and every barrier that's put in front of them is twice as high as it would be for any other human being. And just even looking on the website, you have testimonials and on social media, testimonials from people that have been through the experience. So that's making the potential experience more encouraging, and you see what other people have been through. The website is so clear on how you can get involved. There's a 6-step process of how you can set everything up, and it's quite straightforward. There's an activity finder, which is what I wanted to ask you about, because that's amazing. I can go onto the website, I can search locally to me or wherever I might be and see what I can get involved with from Red January.
Exactly that. It feeds back into what we were saying earlier about really providing Redders with the opportunities to find things that are local to them, that feel accessible and inclusive. And the activity finder, we introduced it last year actually. And the activity finder is an incredible part of the Red community experience, and it really gives people an easy and accessible way to find local opportunities in their area. So we've seen people, even in the past year, because we only introduced it last year through our friends at Played, who work with loads of incredible activity providers around the UK. Because that's the other thing as well. We have readers all over the country. And obviously the dream would be that we would be going around the country and working together to find those places that people could get active. So it's great for now that we've got this activity finder where you simply, as you've probably experienced, put in your postcode and then it shows up lots of options to use that are free, low cost, such variety as well. I went on the other day and there was something, what's it called? You know, Harry Potter?
Yeah.
What's it called?
What, Quidditch?
Yeah. So with that, I was like, wow, okay. So there's real variety. There's real variety on there.
And again, it's that idea of removing the barriers as much as you possibly can. There are so many things to get involved with right on your doorstep. And yeah, it was just nice. It was nice to see that on the website. And how can people get involved now if they want to? Obviously, this is just, you know, the end of December, so January's coming up. And you're going to be really busy. You're busy now, but just before January, you're going to be really busy, and January will be good fun. But how can people get involved? Are they individually or in a, like you said, a team now?
So you can sign up for free at join.redjanuary.com. And when you sign up, we'll be sharing some advice and tips and downloads, all of that good stuff to really enhance your experience. Again, so you can take from it what you want from this January as well. So I hope you can join us. It'll be amazing. And I know you and the team are going to be setting up, no pressure, Dom, but yeah, it'd be brilliant to have you all take part as a team.
Yeah, definitely. Team Raccoon will be doing it. We can't wait. We're looking forward to it. But I'm interested to know, do you ever have an opportunity as you, Hannah, to sit back and go, wow, look at how this grew from wanting to create a positive impact on your mum to now having a positive impact on so many people across the country? Do you allow yourself to think about that? Is it quite a nice thing? Or, you know, and I know you're going to be very humble with your answer, but it is obviously an amazing thing, an amazing change that you've made. Do you think about that? Because you must be so busy all the time, and it's growing exponentially each year.
Yeah, this year especially, actually, I think because, and I know you've similarly done a lot of in-person stuff as well, getting out there, meeting with your community, having the opportunity to get out there and go to schools and universities and workplaces and really hear from Redders that have been a part of Red January now for years. That's the point when you're like, wow, okay, this has had a beautiful ripple effect where people are, if I'm honest, a lot of the time it feels like the people have come up with Red the way that they talk about it, and that's a dream. That was always the dream. Is that it starts with my mum, and then people just feel so empowered by the experience that they have that they then go and share it with their friends and family, and then they get them involved the year after, and that's what's happened. So I've even been in the audience of talks where people have stood up there and talked about Red January, and I'm like, wow. I probably don't need to be.
Surreal.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. So there's definitely times where I see people wearing red, talking about it, that you do have a bit of a pinch yourself moment. Definitely. More of that, please. That would be not all the pinch yourself experience, but more just meeting the red community. That if I could do that day in, day out, that would be the dream.
And speaking of dreams, do you have an ultimate goal for Red January? Do you have a vision for it, or do you just want it to keep growing and affecting people's lives?
We do have a vision, and yes, of course, it would be incredible to reach and support more people with our work. It definitely would. We have a lot of work to do in understanding what people want from Red on the ground and in local communities. So actually, we're probably taking a slight sidestep into being on the ground, spending more time there, because naturally it's existed as an online community. It's a nationwide movement in its essence. So the ambition is that we start to bring ourselves into communities and really understand what they want from something like a Red, and actually start to really understand what the barriers are, because we know them to some extent, but they're ever changing, especially against the landscape that we're all working to at the moment culturally. So yeah, we want to spend more time really listening to people, and then our journey and the goal will likely be informed by that. But yeah, the ambition would be, of course, to be supporting more people and to be doing a lot more work with young people. That's something that we've talked about for years now, but we have a real duty of care to make sure that when we do take that step, that we are giving people the advice and support that they ultimately need from an experience like RED. So there's no quick wins. I know you experience as well, but there's no quick wins with something like RED. We really want to nurture that community and make sure that they're getting from it what they want to. So yeah, there's touched upon a couple of things. So more work with young people, more work on the ground in local communities. That's where we hope to take it next year and beyond.
It's amazing. And a sign of growth is you're partnering with different companies, individuals, such as, I know you've worked with Decathlon, and you also, there was some promotion with Greg White as well, but you must see that as a nice step where you're opening the doors to more people and you're starting to be noticed as well.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, that's what those partnerships are really there for us all to be reaching and supporting each other's communities, especially when the communities are very much rooted in people coming to those spaces to find out ways that they could be moving for their mental well-being. So it's all very complementary. And again, we're really here to provide people with a way that they can engage their communities with movement, especially at this time of year, because it's completely free to join. So it's great that the likes of Decathlon are able to share the opportunity with their community. And again, with Decathlon, because they specialize in so many different activities, it just gives people an opportunity to think, actually, I might try something new this January, or I might continue doing what I'm doing, but I could be enjoying it more if I was wearing certain kit and things like that. So it's nice to know that those partners are out there enhancing the RED community's experience. That's really what those collaborations are all about.
Well, we are looking forward to RED January. I'm looking forward to RED January. And obviously you've spoken about where people can go to sign up, but give that website again, social media as well, so for those people listening that are they're ready to sign up and get involved.
Yeah, so join.redjanuary.com is the place to sign up, and then come and join the RED community online as well at RED January UK.
Hannah, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for going through everything about you and RED January as well, and the vision for it. The last thing that I need from you is your piece of advice. I mean, it can be very practical, like Eddie's was, or it can be something about RED, about anything that will be a piece of advice I'll give to the next podcast guest.
Okay. I know I mentioned earlier about practical small steps. Yep. So is the advice for someone? What's the advice for? What's it for? Is it more...
Anything. We've had everything ranging from make sure you know what the questions are for the podcast to do something every 7 days, or you should have something every 7 days that you can remember that you did that was an adventure, an activity. It can be to enjoy everything you do, or to be you as hard, like all sorts of advice like that. So it's really open in scope.
Okay, cool. So my advice would be start small and realistic, and enjoy where the journey takes you from there.
That is perfect. Thank you, Hannah.
Pleasure. Thank you.